Imagine you become a king at 20 years old and you get given an army, but not everyone is happy. So what do? Well, apart from deleting some people off the board, you create a propaganda campaign. That's what you do. A campaign against the then world leading power, saying that you're going to attack them for all the wrongdoing they've done to you in the past. And so started the clash between two conquerors. Alexander III of Macedon, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was born in 356 BC in Pella, the ancient capital of Macedonia, which is now modern-day Greece. He was the son of King Philip II of Macedon and his wife Olympias. Alexander was educated by the one and only big-brain philosopher Aristotle and was trained in military tactics by his father. At the age of 20, Alexander inherited the Macedonian throne after his father's assassination. Like Aegon the Conqueror and the Iron Throne, he quickly consolidated his power and set his sights on expanding the Macedonian Empire.
Protector of the realm!
Over the course of the next 13 years, Alexander led his armies on a series of conquests that would establish one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to Egypt and even India, all by the age of 30. And here I am, damn near that age, just looking to get paid, god damn. Alexander's first major campaign was against the Persian Empire, which at the time was the dominant power in the region. In 334 BC, he led his army across the Hellespont into Asia Minor and won a series of decisive battles against the Persians, which were led by Darius III. Man like Darius III was the last king of the Persian or Achaemenid Empire. He was a son of King Arsames and was named
Darius III
at birth. Darius III came to the throne in 336 BC after the assassination of his predecessor Artaxerxes IV. I'm starting to sense a little theme here. Darius III's reign was marked by a series of conflicts with Alexander, who was on a quest to dominate the world.
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Despite these setbacks, Darius continued resisting Alexander's advances, retreating further eastward and offering Alexander peace terms on numerous occasions. However, Alexander was determined to conquer the Persian Empire and continued pursuing Darius relentlessly. Despite his ultimate defeat, Darius III was a capable and intelligent ruler who did his best to defend his empire against a formidable opponent. He was known for his bravery in battle and his commitment to his people, and his reign marked the end of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. But wait, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself a little.
Wait a minute!
The story of their relationship began in 334 BC when Alexander took his army and invaded the Persian Empire, but there were two major battles between these two conquerors. The first of which was
the Battle of Issus.
This battle was a historic confrontation between the two armies which took place in 333 BC in the region of Issus near the eastern Mediterranean coast in present-day Turkey. The conflict arose from the long-standing tensions between the Greeks and the Persians, which dated back to the Persian Wars in the early 5th century BC, almost like the beef between Man United and Liverpool. The Persian Empire under Darius III had been expanding its territories and had conquered many of the Greek city-states of Asia Minor. Alexander, who had succeeded his father King Philip as king of Macedon, saw himself as the rightful leader of the Greeks and embarked on a campaign of conquest against the Persians to avenge their past defeats and assert his dominance, or so he said.
You're gonna learn today.
In the fall of 333 BC, Alexander led his army of around 35,000 men across the Hellespont into Asia Minor, where he was met by Darius and his army of over 100,000 men. The two armies met on the narrow coastal plain of Issus, which provided little room for maneuver. Alexander deployed his army in a very unique formation with his elite companion cavalry on the right wing, phalanx infantry in the center, and his Thessalian cavalry on the left. This formation allowed him to create a gap in the center which drew the Persian cavalry into it and separated them from the rest of the army. The battle began with an intense skirmish between the Persian and Macedonian cavalry, in which Alexander personally led the charge against the Persian right flank. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander's cavalry was able to break through the Persian lines, causing panic and confusion among their troops.
Oh, nice.
In the center, the Macedonian phalanx, armed with long spears and shields, held its ground against the Persian infantry. The Macedonian left flank, led by Parmenion, engaged in a fierce battle with the Persian left, which was eventually able to push back the Macedonian forces. Despite this setback, Alexander was able to exploit the gap he had created in the Persian center. He charged straight through it with his companion cavalry victory which cut off Darius from the rest of his army and forced him to flee the battlefield. The Persian army, now leaderless and demoralized, soon surrendered. The Battle of Issus was a decisive victory for Alexander, and it established his military reputation and also secured his position as the new ruler of Asia Minor. But what about Darius? What happened to Darius? So Darius was humiliated and he was forced to flee deeper into the Persian Empire like a little. The battle also had significant cultural implications as Alexander's conquest brought Greek culture and language to the Persian Empire, paving the way
for the Hellenistic period.
This battle was also a turning point in the war as it paved the way for Alexander to conquer most of the Persian Empire. After the
Battle of Issus,
Darius III fled to the eastern part of his empire and began to assemble a new army. Like a little. Nah, just kidding. Am I though? Alexander pursued him and caught up with him in October 331 BC in what is now known as
the Battle of Gaugamela.
This battle was fought near the village of Gaugamela in Mesopotamia, which is now modern-day northern Iraq. The two armies met on a plain near the Tigris River. I'm sure this scene was looking like it was straight out of the 4th Shinobi War. Goddamn! At the time of the battle, Darius led a massive army of between 100,000 to 300,000 soldiers, including cavalry, chariots, and war elephants. Alexander led a much smaller Macedonian army of around 47,000 soldiers, including infantry, cavalry, and archers. Darius's army had incredible size and diversification, but it lacked cohesion and discipline. They stood no chance against Alexander's big brain tactics. Come on now. He used a tactic known as the hammer and anvil, in which he attacked the center of the Persian line with his infantry while using his cavalry to encircle and attack the Persian flanks. Despite their numerical advantage, the Persians were defeated, losing around 40,000 to 50,000 soldiers, while Alexander lost only a few thousand. This strategy caused chaos in the Persian ranks and Darius was forced to flee the battle, again, like a lil. Goddamn. Although Darius III escaped from the Battle of Gaugamela, his defeat marked a significant turning point in the war between the Macedonian and Persian empires. Almost as if he was playing Call of Duty in real life.
Domination. Capture and defend the objectives. We must control the field.
Alexander was able to capture the Persian capital of Babylon and later went on to conquer the majority of the rest of the Persian Empire. Despite several attempts to rally his forces and mount a counterattack against Alexander, Darius was ultimately captured and killed by one of his own commanders in 330 BC, effectively ending the Persian resistance against the Macedonian conquest. The Battle of Gaugamela was another significant military victory for Alexander and is actually considered one of the most decisive battles in history. It demonstrated the effectiveness of Alexander's strategies and tactics, as well as his ability to inspire and lead his troops. The victory also solidified Alexander's dominance in the region and marked the beginning of the end for the Persian Empire. And you think you would despise a man that constantly swept you like you were an extra in a Bruce Lee film. But that was actually far from the case. Despite their many battles, Alexander and Darius III had a complicated relationship. First and foremost though, they were adversaries and enemies. Alexander saw Darius as his enemy and sought to defeat him both to gain control of his empire and to prove his own military prowess. Darius on the other hand though viewed Alexander as a foreign invader who threatened the sovereignty and stability of his empire. Despite their rivalry and conflict, there are actually a few occasions where the two showed respect and admiration for one another. For example, after Darius III was assassinated by Besus, one of his own soldiers, Alexander is said to have wept for his fallen enemy. And after the Battle of Issus, Alexander reportedly found Darius's mother and family among the captured prisoners and treated them with great respect and courtesy. Darius, meanwhile, is said to have expressed admiration for Alexander's courage and bravery even as he continued to resist his conquest. Overall though, the relationship between the two was primarily defined by their military conflict, and their personal feelings towards one another was most likely influenced by political and strategic considerations above all else. Reminds me of another relationship.
He pushed me and I pushed him as well, so it's good.
A clash of titans, a clash of philosophies, a clash of humans.